it was probably the first time in my life that I really listened to myself instead of the outside noise
Mm,
as well, because for so much of my life, I've been so caught up in listening to all the external noise. And when we get too caught up in listening to that, it can sometimes take away that courage that we want to step into as well, because
mm,
everyone's going to project their fears, their doubts, what if you
yeah.
fail? What if this happens? So actually, taking the pieces of courage and the encouragement and being able to drown out the other stuff was a very valuable part for me.
Hello and welcome to the Go Encourage podcast, where I talk to real people about real life, trying to gain some insight around their experiences building courage in their lives. Today, I'm talking to Ella Worsley, who is a co-founder of the Enlightened Co. and Enlightened Retreats out on the Gold Coast in Australia. She is a transformational and growth facilitator. So I'm really excited to see what she brings to the conversation. Before we get started, though, I just want to remind you, I think the percentage is around 60% of you who watch or listen to this podcast haven't actually subscribed yet. So take a minute to do that now. Take a few seconds, only takes a few seconds to do that now or at the end of the episode, because it does help build the platform. Hi, Ella. Welcome to the Go Encourage podcast. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's been a little while since I've been on a podcast, so it feels I'm so excited to be talking to you today.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Brilliant. So I want to start off by asking you your name. I know it's Ella. What's your full name?
Ella Worsley.
Excellent. And do you know what Ella means?
It means goddess. It means fairy.
Goddess.
And I think in like Latin terms, I know it means like she and like kind of come to me as well. I learned that when I was spent 2 months in Greece, and they just found my name absolutely hilarious and like Ella, Ella, Ella. And I'd go to the shops there and I'd constantly be saying Ella. So I know it's a word that they use a lot.
Amazing. And is that in recent years?
No, when I was 21. So yeah, it's a little
Okay.
while back.
A couple of years ago.
Couple
Okay,
of
fair
months.
enough. I did a little bit of research as well, and it means beautiful.
Yeah, of course.
Fairy maiden.
Yep.
Do you feel like a fairy maiden?
Sometimes, absolutely.
Sometimes. And then goddess, that is strong.
Yeah,
That's very strong.
I'll own that.
I like it. So can you tell us a little bit about where you're originally from? What's your hometown known for, where you grew up, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I grew up actually was born in Orange in northern not in New South Wales, and then I grew up in northern New South Wales. So I grew up in beautiful little like country towns. I moved around a lot, but I spent most of my kind of childhood in those Northern Rivers areas, and then kind of moved on to the Gold Coast and things like that. So I don't really have necessarily like a hometown that I've spent a lot of time in, because I did move around a lot. But that Northern Rivers kind of New South Wales and Australia feels like home for me.
Nice. Nice. And where are you now?
Gold Coast.
Gold Coast. And pardon my ignorance, what is that, quite far away from where you grew up?
No, it's literally probably an hour north, half an hour north from some of the
Oh, okay.
spaces as well. So yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world.
Amazing. And can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, your family background,
Yeah,
the dynamics you grew up in,
yeah,
siblings, etc.?
yeah. I got two beautiful brothers. I am the eldest of three, and yeah, I grew.
Ah, firstborn.
Yes,
Right.
firstborn, bossy, great leadership skills. But yeah, I absolutely love my beautiful brothers. I have two parents, and yeah, we have quite a small knit, close family. But yeah, we have gone through a lot, and I'll share more about that in the future.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll get to some of that. Um, uh, as a young girl, what did you envision yourself to be when you grew up?
I never really had like a set, I want to be this or I want to be that, but there was this like deep knowing from a young age that I wanted to help people. And,
All
seeing
right.
mum and dad navigate through depression and sadness and their own challenges, I just remember feeling like I want to help, and I want to help my mum, and I want to help my
Mm.
dad. And I had this deep kind of yearning to help people, and I didn't quite know how, but that was definitely something that was seeded in me from a very young age. And then there was also wanting to be a business owner. So I knew from a young age that I wanted to
Oh.
own a business. I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to have that freedom as well. So it took me quite a while to figure out how I put those pieces together, but those things were there from quite a young age.
And just to drill down to that, when you, as a young person, wanted to, thought to yourself, I want to be a business owner. Was there someone that inspired you? Did you see a business owner, or was there someone that you looked up to that you thought, oh, I want to be like that? Or did it just come out of just within you?
Yeah, I think it was just within me. I haven't had a lot of like entrepreneurial people in the family at all. I haven't had that modeled to
Mm.
me at all. I've probably had the opposite model to me as well. So I think I kind of maybe took from that. I don't want to experience struggle. I don't want to experience lack. I don't want to experience what I'm seeing being experienced in my reality by the people around me. I want to experience something different. So, yeah, it kind of sparked me to want to go a different way.
Mm. Okay. Okay. And then just touching on what you said about wanting to help, seeing some of the stuff that was going on with your parents there. Did you see, looking back now, did you see that sort of manifest itself in your relationships, maybe at school, university, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely see myself, I attracted a lot of kind of people that when navigating through problems and needing support. And I definitely found myself in relationships that were needing, someone to come in, and I felt like I was coming in to save people, so to speak. I was always
Mm.
attracted to hanging out with people that had a lot of issues that I could help with as well. So I definitely feel like I would try and put myself into spaces where I could fill that role, especially at a time where I didn't quite see my worth outside of helping people.
Mm. Interesting. Interesting. Thanks for that. And then fast forwarding to now, what is it that you actually do? Did the two align? Did they
They
meet up?
absolutely did align, and I've it's been a beautiful bumpy road to get here. But I do lots of different things. I work one on one with people. I work with lots of different holistic healing modalities. I do coaching and counseling. I also run retreats, online programs, in person events, corporate workshops, things like that too. So can definitely say that everything I've done up until now has really prepared me as best I possibly could for the beautiful journey of being a business owner. But yeah, I really am
Mm.
passionate about the modalities that I work with, and I found lots of different things that worked for me along my healing journey that I now work with people as well.
Mm. Could you maybe give us a couple of sort of headlines
Yeah, yeah,
of what kind of modalities that you're working when you're working with
yeah.
in the realm of healing?
Hypnotherapy, timeline
Hmm.
therapy, Reiki, and NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming.
Hmm. Okay, so out of them, pardon the ignorance, and I'm really curious as a person. NLP I've heard of, looked into,
Yep.
and sort of seen some of that. Reiki, what's Reiki about?
So Reiki is more like the energy work. So it's more working with
Mhm.
universal energy work. It's more body work as well. The other modalities I work with, obviously, a bit more of the mind, subconscious reprogramming, things like that. So body, Reiki is more like energy body work.
Mhm. Okay, and what would a Reiki session look like for a complete newbie?
Yeah, it looks like lying on a table, closing your eyes, and just receiving. I have lots of different kind of downloads that come
Mm.
through in sessions. I, never try to project my experience onto people, but I just say, "Hey, this is what I experienced." People have like different sensations come through. They have different visions come through. Sometimes they
Mm.
might feel different things going on in different parts of their body because obviously we're clearing away energy. We're getting rid of any stagnant things in the body as well. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I can't really put into words what I do experience when people are on the table. Sometimes I just let
Sure.
that beautiful magic work through me. But people have releases of all kinds. They can feel different sensations. Sometimes there's emotion that
Mm.
comes up as well, and it's just allowing for whatever needs to come up
Mm.
to come up.
And is that guided? Do you guide that through? So I've been in sessions where you're, like sort of hypnotherapy, where it's kind of like, you can feel your face, start to breathe deeply, etc., etc. Is Reiki similar in that way, or is it more about what you feel in the moment?
So I get people, I ask people, do you want, do you want to have a bit of a conversation through it? Do you want me to prompt you? Do you want me to talk? Do you want
Mhm.
music with sound? Do you want music with singing and words and things like that? So I get a bit of a feel for what they're looking for first, because sometimes people are coming in and they just want to lie there. They don't want to talk to anyone for
Mhm.
60 minutes. They just want to receive. So either kind of, I go with that and they just lie there. I do one side, I flip them over, I do the other side, and it's just moving my hands around their body, clearing away different
Mhm.
things, and just again allowing whatever to come through, come through. If they do want it more guided, then I can add a little bit of hypnotherapy into it as well. I can add some
Mhm.
conversations with them. I can add some words in if I see that they're kind of holding on to something or feeling some emotion. Sometimes it might just be gently whispering, like it's safe to let it go, or just, giving yourself permission to feel, or
Mhm.
just something that kind of triggers something within them. Or maybe I'll select some certain words or some songs that I know are going to evoke a certain emotion in them also. So it really looks different for everyone, and it's very intuitively
Mhm.
guided by myself. And then afterwards it looks like a beautiful conversation where I ask them to share their experience, I get them to share what came up for them, and then I kind of share my experience and the things that came up for me as well.
Wow, it sounds really deep, meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And then the other two modalities, so NLP. Oh, can we speak into
Yeah.
NLP just a little bit,
Yeah.
just for
So
people who don't know what it is?
so if you're familiar with Tony Robbins, you're familiar with NLP. He's very well known for it, and he incorporates it into a lot of different things that he does with his beautiful workshops and seminars and things like that. And basically, it's neuro linguistic programming. So it's reprogramming of the mind. It's really analyzing the certain patterns and the language that we're using and things like that, just to really start to program in some
Mm.
new things. So I love the element of language that we look at in specifically with it, because, the words that we use really do create the reality that we live in. So, for instance, if we're
Yeah.
going and saying, I need to put the bin out, like this is coming from this like space of like I need to versus like I get to put the bin out. I've got a bin. I get to put the bin out, right? And even just changing the
Mm.
wording that we use with certain things can then change the way that we feel about it, right? Like I need to pay my bills. Like that comes from that space of like, oh, I need to do this thing versus like I get to pay my bills. How great is it that I have bills and I have abundance to
Mm.
pay my bills, and I have,
Mm.
something that I need to pay a bill for. So we just look at the language that people are using, the words that we're using. We do some work around really changing some of the words that we're using, and having a look at the patterns people are playing into as well, because everyone has a pattern and a strategy for every single thing that they do when they wake up in the morning, how much water they drink, how they move through their day. We're running on these automatic strategies and patterns. And so when we can look at those
Mm.
and we can analyze the ones that aren't working, we can start to put in some new things in there that are going to really create a different result for them as well. So it's there's lots of different techniques that you can use in it to really just create different results in your life. And timeline therapy is a little
Mm.
bit similar. It's a little bit similar to hypnosis in a way that we kind of put people into a little bit of a hypnotic state. We work with the subconscious
Right.
mind, and we go back to times in people's lives where they may have stored certain emotions, and we can do a clearing around that specific emotion. We can also go back to a time that a specific belief was encoded. So I'm not enough, I'm not
Right.
worthy, I can't do X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
And we look at the time that was actually encoded. I was 4 years of age, I was sitting in the back of a car. Mum said this comment to dad, and oh my gosh, in that moment I encoded that belief. So we work on, releasing that
Mm.
belief and putting something else in its space. So it's all really
Wow.
around the mind, reprogramming, and just allowing ourselves to view life through a very different filter.
Mm. Love it, and I love the example of I need to versus I get to, because you're already positioning yourself from a place of having to do something to a place of gratitude,
Yeah,
which then kind of, it's not one thought, is it? Oops, sorry, I banged my microphone there. It's not just one thought, is it? It then sort of overflows into a multitude of
mm,
different thoughts,
yeah.
which then take a different trajectory.
Yeah, like I get to go to the gym. Like I have legs.
Mm.
I have a car. I have a
Mhm.
gym membership. I
Mhm.
have a body. I have lungs that work. I have a heart that's beating. Like
Mm.
instead of I need to go to the gym, looking at it through a
Mm.
completely different lens, it's like, oh, I get to because I have all of these things, and how wonderful is that? And it can just change the way that we look at everything when we are, again, changing the way that we're communicating with ourselves and communicating with the world
Mhm.
around us.
Yeah, and I have to say, look, if I fast forward 10 years ago, I'd be listening to this, going, it's nonsense, it's nonsense. What's a few words? Like, it's the same thing, right? But then when you actually apply it to your life,
Mhm.
and you see the difference that it makes, and you see yourself transform, essentially, it's really powerful, really, really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you for that, and I'm sure we'll tap into some of that a little bit later on as well. So I just thought it'd be really interesting for people to know a little bit more about you on a personal sort of level. So I've got some quick fire questions for you. You up for these?
Yes, shoot.
All right. Here, no one said no so far, so we're good. So off the bat, here we go. Favorite food?
Ooh, I would have to say I love Greek food. So anything Greek.
Greek food.
Mm,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Okay. All right. Greek food. And you mentioned you went to Greece earlier.
Yes,
Is there a connection to? Is
yes.
there
I
a?
spent 2 months there, day
Ah,
sleeping, day eating, swimming in the ocean, just having siestas, having the time of my life. So it's definitely encoded some very happy memories for me there. So, and I got to have the cuisine and just have some really local, fresh, traditional food. So it's absolutely amazing when you can find that.
amazing. Do you want to recommend a place in Greece I should visit?
I went to an island called Kythera, and it's not really for like a lot of locals. It's a very just, yeah, I'm sorry, there's basically locals only on the island, a few tourists, but it
Mm.
was an amazing, very authentic experience and highly recommend it.
I'll write that down. Okay, favorite food was Greek food. All right, iPhone or Android?
iPhone,
iPhone. You're cool. Preferred clothing choices?
a dress, just a summer dress,
Okay. All right.
even in winter.
Summer dress, and it's even in
Even
winter.
in
Okay.
winter.
And you said it was really hot there at the moment, didn't you?
Yes, yeah.
What What would be the temperature right now? Do you do
Uh,
Celsius
it's
or you Fahrenheit?
it's been about like 32, 33 degrees, which I'm not sure what that
Okay.
is in Fahrenheit. Something, it's hot.
Yes, no, so we do Celsius as well, so it works really well. Favorite place? Is it Greece? Is it Greece?
And Italy.
What's your second favorite place? What would you put sort of close
Probably
second?
Italy or Greece or
Oh, beautiful,
Switzerland.
nice, good choice. Ah, I've been to Italy and Switzerland. Oh,
Yeah,
so
just Europe,
good.
really.
Just Europe.
Yeah,
I noticed you didn't say London, but
yeah.
okay, I'm not offended. It's fine.
It's up there.
Star sign.
Gemini,
Is it up there? Gemini, Gemini, Gemini. Is that May? No,
June, May and June.
June. Close. May and June. All right, I was right. Pat on the back. Cats or dogs, or
Dogs,
neither?
dogs.
Dogs. And then last movie you watched?
I watched Eddie the Eagle, which I highly recommend.
Eddie the Eagle.
Mm.
Who's the star in that?
I'm not sure, but it was a great movie. Absolutely highly recommend. His energy is just infectious. And if we want to talk about courage,
Right.
absolutely beautiful movie to kind of play into that because, yeah, his courage
Okay.
and determination is just, yeah, so wild and so beautiful to witness.
Fantastic. All right. I'm going to stick a link in the description for that as well if you're interested in listening to this. Current TV show or book or Instagram account that you're into at the moment
I'm
that's
watching
taking
The
your interest?
Bear on Netflix.
The Bear.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
highly stressful to watch. I wouldn't recommend it as like a relaxing downtime show, but I'm into it. It's a show about a restaurant. Yeah, and I'm into
Okay.
it.
Okay. Cool. And then, are you spiritual? Do you believe in God or a higher power?
Yes, I believe in God and I believe in a higher power and I I like to play into I don't know a lot.
Hmm.
And I find comfort in that. Like this, I have my beliefs and I have my perceptions, and I believe that we all have our beliefs and our perceptions. And I do believe in a higher
Mm.
power and a God, but I also just surrender into the not knowing. But I do find a lot of faith in
Mm.
knowing that something greater than myself is always looking out for me, and I really trust in that. So I do pray, and I do, go to church every now and then as well. But I also just play into the not knowing as well.
Mm. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Because knowledge comes from that, not knowledge, wisdom comes from that place, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Of knowing that we don't know a lot
yeah.
collectively. Yeah, excellent. And is that something, if you don't mind me asking, is that something that's been with you your whole life, or has there been an experience that has got you to that place?
Um, Yeah, I think it's just been my own journey. I grew up with a very religious grandmother that pushed a lot of religion onto me. I then grew up with parents that, kind of despised religion and didn't kind of put that on me as
Mm.
well. So I kind of, saw different things modeled in certain ways. And it's kind of been my own journey of finding what feels good for me. And yeah,
Mm.
I've always felt connected to something, but I know that there's a conversation around the new age, and then there's a conversation around religion, and I know that those two things don't always sit together in a lot of people's eyes as well. But I like to allow all of it to be present, because I find that there's so much in the new age that I really resonate with, and then there's so much within the Bible, and there's so many beautiful teachings in there as well. But yeah, for me, that they
Mm.
all get to it all gets to coexist. And I think we've all got like a piece of God living within us, right? Like we're all here to do his work on planet Earth, and we're all doing our best to kind of live into that as well. And yeah, we're all connected to that. I think whether we believe it or not, whether we practice it or not, I think we're all connected in the most beautiful way. And I just, yeah, that brings me a lot of peace.
All right. A little bit more about your personality. Would you say you're an introvert, extrovert? What sort of
Ambivert.
side of the scale do you fall on?
I would say
Ambivert.
yeah,
Love
I
it.
would say I'm in the middle. It depends what time of day, what day of the week. No, I love
Yeah.
both. I love that quiet time with myself. I definitely need it. I love
Mhm.
to nap and to recharge and to just have those quiet moments. I
Mm.
know that when I kind of tip over a little bit too much in the social kind of net space, I need to kind of revert back and have that quiet time with myself. But then I know if I have too much time with myself, I need those social interactions as well. So yeah, I need both.
And have you found that that's something that you've worked on intentionally, or do you naturally kind of know when the right time is for each?
I definitely have worked on it through boundaries. Yeah, I schedule in probably every 3 weeks, like a just a weekend with no plans at all, because I find that
Hmm.
if I can give myself just like a deep rest weekend once a month, then I am good. I completely recharge. I come out the other side of that feeling really great as well, and it just gives me that time to really be with myself, to really check back in on a deeper level. So yeah, there's definitely strategies and tools that I've put into my life to allow for it all to coexist.
Brilliant, brilliant. Love it. Love languages. Have you ever done the love languages test?
Words of affirmation, absolutely. And yeah, probably physical touch.
Hmm. Excellent. It's interesting because the work that you do as well, that kind of aligns really well with what you're doing as well. So you kind of, I'm assuming from this chair in London, that would feed really well into coaching your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. It fills me up like nothing else.
Mm, amazing. Are you more of a make things happen person or go with the flow?
But you're definitely a bit more on the make things happen side. Absolutely. I feel like
Mhm.
I
Is
am.
that the first born vibes going on there,
Yeah,
or?
I'm very ambitious. I'm a bit of a go-getter. I like to take action in my life. I like to make things happen, but
Mm.
I've also learned to allow things to happen. And, I like to do the dance between that masculine doing and that feminine being as well, because I really feel like
Mm.
both are needed in, manifesting and calling in all those beautiful things. And, sometimes when I put that energy out and I do all the things, I then take that time, I step back and create the space for the stuff to come into my life as well. So I always make sure that there's
Mm.
intentional space for the new clients to come in, for the X, Y, and Z that I'm calling in as well. Because if there's no space, then there's no space.
Mm. I really like that. There's a lot of wisdom in that because if you're constantly making things happen, sometimes you can push so hard that you're actually forcing, like a circle into a square because it's not supposed to fit. But whereas if you give yourself that space and other people that space to create new sort of pathways,
Yeah.
you you get to read beautiful spaces.
And the things that are meant for you that you didn't know were as well.
Mm.
Those things that you never you never knew were meant to come into your life, or the space for things to
Mm.
fall into place in a completely different way that you didn't realize. And when you surrender into that, I think that would be a beautiful word, like surrender. Um,
Mm.
yeah, it's amazing what can come in when we do just allow.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of Go Encourage is we do a relationship series as well. And I was having a conversation recently, and we were just talking about how people look for their partner.
Yeah.
Here's the green flag to look for. This is the person I want. They need to be such and such tall. They need to be into this. They need to align with my belief in God or belief in career and all the rest of it. And so much effort goes into that if you just maybe align yourself with what's important to you and your heart and what drives you, and maybe not so much a partner to fulfill that, what happens is that you attract the sort of person that is right for you, not always what you think is right for you, but is actually right for you, because then they align with your vision. So that's really interesting, because it's a good connector there, I think.
I think it's like that. Sometimes what we want isn't necessarily what we need.
Mm,
The different things.
absolutely.
Sometimes we can really want this thing over here, but what we really need is over here.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes, and I think you put it beautifully as well. Sometimes we just don't know what we need,
Yeah.
because we've got the blinkers on, thinking we've got it all together.
Yeah, our ego is telling us that we need this thing or whatever it is, or we're listening to the wrong information, and just, allowing whatever comes
Mm,
in to come in.
yeah, absolutely. Okay. Everybody loves a good compliment. What's one compliment that stands out to you?
I think I like your energy, or I love your energy, is always a really beautiful compliment, because I think it's, yes, we love the physical
Mm,
comments around your hair and your eyebrows are great, or whatever it is, right? Like, yes, thank you, I'm willing to receive. But those internal compliments of, your personality, or, something that isn't an external thing, is always something that really resonates with me.
okay. So what did somebody say about your energy?
Just like, I love your energy, or you feel really safe, or you feel like home to me, or like, things like that, that again aren't that external, or, you have a great car,
Mm,
or you're really good at doing this. Like, those internal compliments, I feel, really just land a little bit differently.
okay. All right. And then what's on the flip side? What's a common misunderstanding that someone or people have had about you?
A lot of my life, I think people have had a misconstrued view of, that I've had a really easy life. I think I've always been quite a happy,
Mm,
positive, kind of go-getter kind of person. And even when I was going through very dark times in my life, I didn't kind of let that
mm,
on the external as well. So, when I
mm,
kind of finally opened up about a lot of my past with, even friends that I'd had for a very long time, a lot of them were quite surprised, because they were like, I never knew, you always put on this happy face, you were
mm,
always smiling, you were always Miss Positive. And I did have this Miss Positive kind of identity that I would always play into as well, which was obviously masking, the unhappiness that I was feeling.
mm,
So a lot of people have had this view that I've had this, really easy, great life, when, I have had a lot of challenges.
mm. Yeah, I hear that. I can resonate with that as well. I think I tend to be seen as Mr. Positive as well. And then maybe 6 months into a relationship, when they go, "Oh, I had no idea you were going through this in the background," and sometimes, and you said masking, and sometimes that happens, but sometimes it's just when you ask yourself, "Do I choose? Is it right to disclose this? Is it relevant?" And sometimes it's not relevant.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're there to help, whoever it is that you're helping.
And do I feel
Um,
safe? Do I feel have
and do you feel,
safe?
yeah.
Does this person have capacity to receive it? There can be obviously so many things. So
Mm,
there's different reasons why.
yeah, I like that. I'm working on the safety aspect of
Mm,
things.
yeah,
I think I'm an includer by nature, and so I go in with the view that everyone's trustworthy
yeah.
and everyone's great and all the rest of it. Whereas I think, and I don't think she'd mind me saying this, my sister is probably the opposite. You
Yeah.
have to earn her trust, and so she kind of balances me out a little bit, which is good.
Another one I love is like, does this person have the capacity to receive
You
this
said,
as
yeah.
well? Because, and I sometimes might ask, if I'm going to unload something with somebody and have, a vulnerable conversation, sometimes I try and
Mm,
like check in, like, hey, I'd love to share something that's quite big. Like, do you have the capacity to receive this right now? Because sometimes people don't. Like,
mm,
actually, no, I don't have that
mm.
capacity right now, but I'd love to talk about it next Thursday. How does that feel? So I think capacity is
Yeah,
a big thing as well.
I love that. Very clear communication. So you set expectations beforehand as
Yeah,
well. Yeah,
NLP.
beautiful.
No.
NLP, yeah. Um, so this one is about routines and practices. So I've picked up a little bit from what you're saying that you have been intentional in
Mhm.
some of the things that you've been doing in terms of scheduling, in terms of downtime,
Yep.
and things like that. So I believe that they're key to productivity. And whilst I'm not like, I think I used to be, but I'm not like I have to get everything done. I think there's definitely value around creating a structure that works for us. So, with that in mind, is there a specific routine or a mindset that helps you to stay productive?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any
I have
recommendations?
a little like
Mm,
checklist, and I have like my non-negotiables on the list, but then I have like I'd love to get this done, and this is my goal for the day. But I don't beat myself up if I don't tick them off. So meditation is
mm,
something that I deeply value. Just even if it's 5 minutes
mm,
of sitting in silence and just being present, I know that I always come out the other side of that feeling so much better. And I do love to do it in the morning so that I can just start my day off feeling grounded and present in the present moment instead of my mind in the future or my mind in the past. So, absolutely,
mm,
meditation. Movement as well. So getting, a morning walk in or a morning workout in is something that I absolutely love. I love reading. So if it's not reading that I'm doing, listening to an audiobook while I'm working, while I'm walking. I love hypnotherapy, so I try and schedule some of those in sometimes in the afternoon and just have that time to revitalize and just switch my mind
mm,
off. Journaling is another thing that I love. So yeah, there's a couple of things that I try and definitely do each day. But again, if I don't tick them off, I don't beat myself up. I don't go into self criticism. I check
mm,
in on my capacity for the day. I might have only had 30% capacity that day as well. So therefore, of course, I haven't done all of my routine. But taking that
mm,
time for ourselves is so important, and having a bit of a toolbox to regulate so that we're not going into our days unregulated and feeling like we're going to just,
mm,
continue to bring that ungrounded energy into all the things that we're doing. So, yeah, I love the
mm,
saying, I'm worth the effort. And that's something that I remind myself of when I catch myself in the, ooh, I should be starting work now, or I should be doing this. I just remind myself that I'm worth this time. I really am. And I know that I'm going to show up better
mm.
if I give myself this time.
Beautiful. I was going to ask you what can we do when we don't feel like we can make time for that, and that's so beautifully put. You're worth the effort.
5 minutes
So,
and 5 minutes, we all
mm,
go to the toilet. We all sit on the toilet, right?
mm,
If you are that
mm,
strapped
mm,
for time, go and sit every time you go on the toilet or a couple of times throughout the day. Just do some breathing. Just take some deep breaths,
mm,
breathe the stuff out, or give yourself a little cuddle, or just say some affirmations or whatever you need to do. But everyone sits on the toilet each
mm,
day. So if you are that strapped for time, that's some time that you can do it. Or
mm.
habit stacking. If you're driving in your car, can you listen to an audiobook? If you're going for a
Yep.
walk, can you listen to an audiobook? Like, where can you stack some habits together in the little pockets of time that you do
Mm.
have? And even just 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, it all adds up to the big stuff.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, really good. Really good. If I was someone who was just starting out, I'm unregulated, I'm all over the place, constantly late getting up, go to bed late because I'm on my phone, trying to throw other things onto the list, not eating well. And I'm listening to something like this and I'm like, yeah, it all sounds very difficult. Like I can't get motivated. What would be one piece of advice you would give them to get started on the journey, let's say?
Find find some motivation as to why. Because sometimes the
Mhm.
motive, and it's instead of what you want to move away from, what do you want to move towards? Is and
Mm,
what will those things, implementing those things into your life, do for you 5 years from now, 1 year from now? Because the seeds that we sow today, will be the harvest that we'll enjoy in 5 years' time. So, looking at the motivational factors and find something that can really support you in just injecting that motivation in, that will then create the discipline to do those things. So, having a why,
right.
and then just start with one thing.
Mm,
Start just doing one thing a day, and even if it's just 5 minutes a day, but that will then help you create self trust. because, one of the big things that comes into play here is that we don't actually trust ourselves to follow through with things. So when we can just start to create the discipline with just one thing, and then by then it's like, oh, I'm doing the thing and I'm doing it consistently, and I'm starting to notice changes, we then start to really believe and trust in ourselves so much more, and that will then funnel into being able to do more things. So start small, have compassion, and find a motivating reason as to why implementing these things into your life is a good idea.
Fantastic. Well put. Really well put. Thank you for that. Okay, so big question. Here you are, ongoing courage. You ready? What does courage mean to Ella? What does courage mean to you?
It's that old saying, feel the fear and do it anyway. It's feeling the fear, it's feeling the uncertainty, it's feeling the doubt, it's feeling the pit in your stomach, it's feeling the sweat, and it's feeling all of those uncomfortable things and still stepping in and doing the thing. And it's not being able to see the path ahead or the certainty around a certain result. It's almost being like blindfolded and stepping into like the unknown, but it's feeling those things and stepping in and trusting that wherever you land, you're going to be okay. Or even if you fail, even if you muck up, even if you fall straight on your face, it's taking that moment to step in and do those things, and just to trust that I can do this. It's like that 5 seconds of courage. I can do this, and I'm going to step in, and it's okay if I don't know what's going to unfold from here.
Yeah.
Almost like putting on your little cape.
Sorry, say that again.
It's like putting on your little cape. It's like putting on your little like Superman cape and just like flying off and just flying into the sky and not being able to see where you're going.
See, now you're speaking my language, because if I turn the camera around, you're going to see a shelf full of Superman memorabilia everywhere. But yeah, no, I like that as well put. It's being in that moment, because I think a lot of people think that being courageous or courageous people are just built differently, or it's not experiencing fear, but it is feeling the fear and doing it anyway, as you said there. It's part of the whole process. Yeah. Okay. And then why do you think courage plays an important part in our lives as humans?
I feel like it's that first step that we need to take in order to, achieve a certain result, or, start doing some change work. It's that first step almost, because, often we want to change and we want to create different results in our life, but we're scared, we're fearful, we might fail, we might be rejected, we might be abandoned. We have all of these stories, all of these emotions that hold us back from actually stepping in. So it's taking that first step out, and, really we need that first step. Otherwise we're not going to step in. So to me, it's that, again, that first step that we take along the path to change and transformation. And without it, we're not fully going to step into that journey.
Oh, I love that. Really love that thought. It really is that first step, isn't it? Because it is an action. Courage is, involves action. And usually once you've taken that first step and you've created some momentum, you soon see that courage starts to turn up, and you start to focus on the task at hand, as opposed to how scared you feel about it.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's that little bit of self-trust as well that we've kind of injected in, like, oh, I did the thing. I was scared, I was fearful, I didn't want to do it, but I did the thing, and maybe I can trust myself a little bit. Maybe I am trustworthy. Maybe I can step in and do more.
Yeah, I love it. The trust part as well, because I think, and of course it depends where you start off on the journey. So I know one rule doesn't apply to everyone. Not that it's a rule, but in terms of trusting yourself is so important. If you haven't learned to do that, and you're a people pleaser by nature, maybe, or you put people in, people's priorities, can I say the word, in front of your own priorities, it's really difficult to then do things for yourself, because it takes a lot of courage to say, well, actually I'm valuable too, and what I think is valuable, I might not be right, but how I feel and what I think is important.
And the trusting, right? We take a job, and then the boss ends up being really crappy, or we, date someone and the relationship fails. Like, we have these things that we feel like we listen to our intuition, or we feel like at the time we're a really good decision,
Mm,
and then they don't pan out the way that we want to. And so that then comes back to, well, can I really trust myself, because I chose that and I made that decision and I did all of that, and that didn't turn out the way
mm,
that I wanted to. Maybe I'm not trustworthy. Maybe I can't listen to that internal voice, because look what's happened.
mm. Absolutely. Yeah. There's this, I think definitely in the Christian world, there's this piece of scripture that says, love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Mm,
And I think often, in my experience anyway, I've seen in these communities that you end up burning out because you're loving your neighbor in such a sacrificial way.
mm,
And the understanding around sacrifice is at the detriment to yourself. But then if you look at it, and someone pointed this out to me maybe a year or so ago, and it was really powerful. Love your neighbor as you love yourself.
mm,
And so actually the important part of that sentence is you need to love yourself as well. And so if you want to be able to trust people or show up for people or put the cape on for people, the integrity is built by you doing that yourself for yourself, because it's a bit like being on a plane, isn't it? You've got to put your mask on before you help someone else put their mask on. And I thought that was a really poignant
I
sort
love
of
that.
thought to think about, and I never really thought about it that way until that conversation.
I
Yeah, and
love
it
that.
lines up with what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Thinking about the work that you do as a growth and transformation facilitator, what do you see in terms of patterns that people have as they confront fear in their lives?
It probably comes back to a lot of like self-trust, like not trusting
Mm,
themselves enough to go in. Safety is a really big thing as well, because our mind obviously wants to take us
mm,
towards what's familiar, and it hates what's unfamiliar. So, stepping
mm,
into fear, stepping into uncertainty, stepping into a space where we don't quite know the outcome, that brings with it a lot of uncertainty. And the mind doesn't like that. The mind's like, red flag, I don't
mm,
want to go in there. I want to go back to what's comfortable over here. So having
mm,
to create enough safety internally to know that we're going to be okay in there. Obviously building up a bit of a
mm,
toolbox for people as well, because some people don't have tools or resources that they turn to, so giving them those tangible things to turn to. But a lot of self-sabotage as well, because sometimes people won't
mm,
feel worthy of the thing that they want to go after. They won't feel worthy of creating the change. They won't feel worthy of whatever it is that they're wanting to call in for their life. So they might sabotage themselves before they even start the journey, and go back to that familiar
mm,
pain, because they again don't feel worthy of going in. So yeah, everyone's different. There
mm,
can be so many different things that come up for people along the way, but resistance is such a big part of it as well. We often resist that what we need, but moving through the resistance really is the biggest part of the journey. Once we can move through that resistance and just step in, the rest of the work is so much easier.
mm. Makes so much sense. And not sure how to ask this. In terms of resistance and in terms of people not feeling safe, have you found sort of big topics like, I don't want to diminish other people's experiences either, so maybe I shouldn't say big topics, but maybe someone's had some sexual
Mm-hmm.
trauma in their life,
Mm-hmm.
maybe someone's had a toxic relationship, maybe something's happened to a family member, things like that. Do you see people with huge trauma come in and work with you, and then are able to work through that in terms of moving them along in their journey of maybe grief or
Yep.
acceptance and
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like that?
yeah, absolutely. And it's beautiful, because I've had people come in with all of the things. I've had clients that have been like trafficked and experienced
Oh
murder and
wow.
like all kinds of sexual
Mm,
abuse, physical abuse, whatnot. And then I've had clients that have
mm,
come in that have had really great lives, that have had parents that have
mm,
been overachievers and, very wealthy and things like that. And the beautiful thing I've noticed along the way is that sometimes they both end up in the exact same space, because, we're all humans and we all can come back to feeling unloved and unseen and
mm,
unheard and not good enough. And like, we carry often very similar stories. And sometimes it doesn't matter how we've got to the destination, we get to the destination. So, I've seen people
Mm.
almost with sometimes bigger resistance with this, what we'd call like the smaller trauma, because they have the story that my stuff's not big enough, or my stuff's not important
Mm.
enough, or is it really like trauma? Billy in year 4 didn't want to be my friend, so he
Mm.
wasn't my friend anymore. But to that 4-year old, that's really traumatic. That's a really big event, right? That's something that's really significant for them. But we look back on these things and we can almost like, oh, that wasn't as big as maybe I've
Mm.
made it out to be. So sometimes there can almost be more resistance on that end because they don't, necessarily view it through that lens of it being traumatic for them, or don't think that their stuff's worthy of it. Um,
Mm.
However, definitely when there is multiple traumas stacked on top of each other and there's a bit of a complex history there can be a lot of resistance, especially if there's been a lot of people hurt them and a lot of hurt, put upon them in the hands of other people. There's because we have to create that trust that people are okay and it's safe to open up and it's safe to explore these things. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question
Mm.
or not, but there's really no right or wrong. Like I've seen all kinds of people
Mm.
on all spectrums and all kinds of levels of resistance. I think it ultimately is how over it are they? How ready, willing, and
Mm.
able are they to create the change? Because once we're in that
Yeah.
space, the resistance is still going to be there, but we can move through it.
Mm. No, really, really good. I think there's everyone's trauma is relative to them, and it's really easy to go, oh well, like using your example there, oh, that was you 4 years old, get over it, this person's gone through something and it's terrible. But it's actually like for the person it's really, really important.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a masculine feminine energy here, where the masculine would tend to go down the logic path
Mm-hmm.
and then put things in a priority order, hierarchy, that kind of thing, and then just work on what's important, according to that. And then maybe the feminine energy is to be, nurturing and actually meet people in terms of what they're feeling
Mm-hmm.
and able to kind of, create a space where they can process those emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Women also can be very logical in terms of how they
Sure,
want to
sure.
do
And I
it.
don't mean to,
No,
yeah.
they definitely can. But I think it's all needed as well, because we do want to have that masculine element of
Mm.
like, sometimes checking in and rating things and, seeing what the actual priority is. Because if we're just trying to tackle everything, then it's a bit of a mess
Mm.
sometimes. We really want to like hone in on like what's the deeper root of it? Like where did it all start
Mm.
and how can we start there so that the other stuff can kind of be worked through with a bit more ease.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's really good. Yeah. Okay. Reflecting on your insights, can you share a particular experience that required courage from you personally?
When I first started my business, I was just at a stage where I was so sick of being in corporate. I was kind of dabbling my fingers in with, I was seeing clients, I'd started doing pro bono work, I'd then started doing some paid work, I was kind of building up my client base, and I was doing contracting work for marketing, and I was so over it. I was ropeable every day. I did not want to go in there. I was at my end of it all. And I went and did another training, and I was meant to go back to Sydney. I was meant to come back from Sydney and start a brand new job that was meant to be like, one of the best jobs I'd ever had in my life. I was going to be managing and doing
Mm.
the marketing for 3 different venues. It was an amazing opportunity. I think it was like 20 grand more than I'd ever received financially as well. So like on paper, it was
Amazing.
great. And I just remember feeling this massive resistance, like I can't do this. And
Mm.
I had another training that I wanted to go and do. And basically, in order to do that, I wasn't able to go and start that job. And so I
Mm.
got back from Sydney and I was just like, I'm just going to jump in the deep end. Like, I'm just going to burn my bridge and just jump into my business full time and just make it happen. Like, I trust myself. I'm going to figure it out. I don't really have a plan right now, but I know that I have the fire within me to make this happen. So I made that phone call.
Mm.
I was like, I'm so sorry. This is completely out of integrity for me. I know I'm meant to start on Monday, but I won't be starting. I just can't. I need to follow my soul's purpose, and I need to go and do the work that I'm here to do. And yeah, that was probably one of the biggest courageous things that I ever did in my life, was just make that leap and
Mm.
have to figure it out. It was a bit of a mess for a while, figuring all the different things out. But I knew that I could do it. I had that self-trust that I built. I believed in myself. I'd kind of put some foundational pieces in for
Mm.
me internally. And yeah, I just kind of left the corporate world, jumped full time into my business, and just made it happen.
Incredible. And can you pinpoint a particular moment that you might have said to yourself, okay, I'm just going to do this, or maybe a series of moments or a time period where
Yeah,
you felt something inspired you?
just again coming back from that training and knowing that I was meant to start on the Monday, and I was just like, I can't do it, and I made the internal
Mm.
decision that I wasn't going to be doing it. A lot had been kind of, there'd been a lot of little clues that had been dropped for me along the way. And I had this inner knowing for a long time that I just need to do this thing. I just need to do this thing. So for me, the courage
Mm.
also involved listening to the inner voice and stop
Mm.
kind of putting it to the side and just actually listen to what my internal voice was telling me and taking action on that.
Mm. Excellent. Did you have anyone in your life at that time that was able to sort of help you maybe reflect back to you what you were thinking, or was it sort of you and a piece of paper? Um,
I had coaches and mentors. So yeah, definitely had some
okay.
amazing support people that were like, do it, you can do it. Some that were like, maybe think about it a little bit. Have you got a bit of a plan? So, took
Yeah.
the pieces of advice that I wanted to take, but also again, like it was probably the first time in my life that I really listened to myself instead of the outside noise
Mm.
as well, because for so much of my life, I've been so caught up in listening to all the external noise. And when we get too caught up in listening to that, it can sometimes take away that courage that we want to step into as well, because
Mm.
everyone's going to project their fears, their doubts, what if you
Yeah.
fail? What if this happens? So actually, taking the pieces of courage and the encouragement and being able to drown out the other stuff was a very valuable part for me.
Mm. And would you say it's fair to say that that was a moment of integrity for you, looking back, in terms of when you now come up against things that you're not quite sure about? Does it feed into that?
Yeah, I was in integrity with what was true for me. And I
Excellent.
was in
Because I
integrity with,
think so.
the life that I wanted to create.
Mm. And would you say you're sitting in that life now?
Yes, absolutely.
Love
Still
it.
figuring it
So
all out,
powerful.
but absolutely in
Of
it.
course. Of course. Yeah, it's a journey, right? It's never a destination, but yeah, it sounds like you've got your ducks in a row, so to speak, to get to where you wanted to get to, and it sounds like there's a lot of intentionality there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I try my best to be intentional about things and, have plans and sit and reflect and, do those internal, check-ins every now and then, but also allow for that free flow and that surrender as well.
Mm. Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. I wanted to ask you: was there anything in your life? I think you touched on it earlier on, where you share your experiences with some of the people that you work with. Was there anything early in your life that I don't know what word to use here, that was difficult, that then shaped the way that you did things?
Yeah, absolutely. My uncle was murdered when I was 6 years of age, and that event really just kind of took my whole family into a lot of darkness. My mum was thrown
Mm.
into grief. I lost my mum for a very long time. Obviously, that being a primary caregiver, she was just sucked up whole by that grief. My grandma as well. I never really got my grandma back, so to speak. She was never the same after
Mm.
that. So, as a 6-year-old, my mum's deep in grief. My dad's going through a lot of mental health issues. They'd had a car accident. They both were going through all kinds of things. And it was the straw
Mm.
that broke the camel's back in so many ways. I had one brother
Sure.
already. A year later, another brother came earthside as well. So we had this newborn baby in this chaos, so to speak. And it was,
Mm.
yeah, the downfall of my parents' marriage eventually as well. Everything kind of fell apart from there. And there were lots of different events throughout my teenage years, specifically where I experienced a lot of trauma. And every time I'd kind of come up
Mm.
for air and feel like I was maybe moving through something, there'd be something else come along and then something else come along. And I was basically a shell of myself. There was a lot of self-hate. There was a
Mm.
lot of self-sabotage. I felt completely unworthy, and I just felt so lost and so disconnected from myself because I wasn't mature enough to have the emotional intelligence to move through those things at that age. I was just too young. And so,
Sure.
yeah, my parents got really lost for a long time. We got really lost for a long time. And it wasn't until probably like 24, 25 when I started to really do the healing work. But there were definitely a lot of significant events before that that just, yeah, came my way and challenged me. But I know now they were all for a purpose.
Mm. Going back to your mind when you were 6 years old and trying to process what just happened, were you aware of what had happened? Were things
Yes and
sort of
no.
kept a little bit away from
No,
you?
I guess, and
Okay.
definitely they were. I think they were out in the open. I just
Mhm.
remember mum being so sad. I just remember her being so sad all the time. And I just remember seeing both mummy and daddy sad. I remember seeing them fighting. And I just
Mhm.
remember that things weren't the same. And I grew up pretty quickly
Mm.
after that. I was, trying my best to be there for my mom, trying to be there for my brother, my other brother when they came along. So, yeah, I think a lot of my childhood didn't end there, but changed there. So yeah, I was
Mhm.
definitely aware.
Right. Okay. Okay. And it's it's not something that happens to everyone in terms of that experience. So did you find sort of connecting with people your age back then difficult, or did it not have an impact on that sort of those sorts of formative relationships?
Definitely, we moved. I think before I was 18, we lived in 38 houses. So we were in this.
38.
Yes,
Okay.
38,
Wow.
28,
Okay.
somewhere around there. We were in this constant
Right.
chaos cycle because
Hmm.
my mum had a very traumatic upbringing, and that's all she knew. And my dad didn't really know any
Hmm.
different either. So, every year we'd move, or every 6 months we'd move. And I went to lots of different schools. I had lots of different friends. We lived in lots of different areas. And every time I kind of start to put my roots down and kind of build a little bit of familiarity for myself, we'd uproot and we'd go somewhere else. So, forming relationships was easy to do initially. Like, I got really good at making connections with people when I'd first meet them, but actually forming deep relationships has been a really big area of
Mm.
work for me later on in life, because I never learned how to do it. I would kind of lose a connection with those people. It wasn't in a time of Facebook and telephones and things like that we have these days. So,
Mm.
once you moved and you didn't see those people again. So it definitely affected
Mm.
me being able to kind of form those important relationships, and it's kind of led to having to do work around that later on in life.
I'm not going to lie, I feel a bit emotional hearing that in terms of where you're at now and how you help people build emotional resilience within themselves. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Wow. Um, and at the same time, I'm thinking about people listening to this podcast or watching it, trying to connect with that part of what that would have felt like versus what you did within yourself. You talk about the work that you did. Are you able to speak into some of those things that you actively did in order to move from here to there?
Yeah, I had to put down my walls, because even in my teenage years, when you add that plus you add all the trauma that I went through, I got a really hard exterior, and I got really good at kind of convincing myself that everything was okay. I got really good at pretending and being happy. And so, some of the work with myself was actually just being really honest with myself around how I was feeling, because without that key piece of self honesty, I couldn't then communicate that to other people and really let people in. So, being honest with myself, learning how to put my walls down, and really allow relationships in, allow people in, because even for so many previous partners, I wouldn't let them in. Emotionally, I wasn't available.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was probably the word that I would use. I wasn't emotionally available. And
Mm.
I had to really learn how to be available and how to let people in and how to communicate when I was feeling, sad or, misunderstood, or, let the vulnerability kind of show in my life, and let the unpolished parts of me come forward as well. Because for such a long time, I'd only let the polished parts of me be, witnessed by other people, because I had this internal story that, if people see the real me, they won't like me and I won't be accepted. So there are lots of different pieces that landed in it for me, but relationships are such a big area of life, and safe and secure relationships are, it's an art. It's not something that we're necessarily taught how to develop. And there's, we look at family dynamics, there's so much dysfunction there. And then we take that dysfunction out into our other relationships and our school friends. And before we know it, we've got all these relationships, we've got all these people, but it's dysfunctional. So I've had to unlearn a lot, especially around, relating and seeing things that I witnessed from my parents and ways that they did things. I've had to unlearn a lot of that stuff and learn different things. There's been a lot of unlearning and a lot of learning.
Yeah, powerful. In terms of maybe attachment styles, have you looked into kind of attachment theory and things? Would you have, I'm not an expert, but would you say that you leaned more towards being avoidantly attached then, in terms of what you're expressing there?
I would say that avoidant. I was also a little bit like anxious sometimes as well. I think I probably played a little bit into both of them, but I would say that the dominant one was the avoidant. Because I think, when you experience, because I experienced a lot of pain from people very close to me, and I got, very hurt by family members. My first ever boyfriend cheated on me. So that was a really big wound that I then carried into my teenage years. And so, when you do experience pain from people around you, you want to kind of wrap yourself in cotton wool, and you say to yourself, if people that close to me can hurt me, what can other people do? So it is really about creating that trust again, and knowing that not everyone's going to hurt you, but dealing with those core wounds that have been developed along the way will then, and has helped me move back into more of that secure attachment style and learn how to be in that space.
And I love that you made that point, because I think with attachment styles, you can move if you recognize where you are or where you lean towards, and you're able to acknowledge, okay, I can see this pattern, I can see the reasons why I go down this road. It's not like, okay, that's it now, that's you for life, you're avoidantly attached or anxiously attached or whatever. You can actually take steps to move forward and actually go, I want to get to a more secure attachment sort of style, so that when I am relating to my spouse, to my boyfriend, girlfriends, or even friendship groups, etc., children, I'm able to show up in a way that I'm owning my trauma, my past, my triggers. Yeah,
absolutely. Definitely check it out. Excellent. If you haven't looked at your attachment style, go and have a look at it.
Definitely. This is the point where I usually, I don't know if I've got it over there. There's a book called Attached, which I found really helpful when I was sort of starting down that route and trying to understand a relationship that I was in, and sort of how we both kind of did the dance of the avoidant and the anxious, trying to make things work. And that was really, really helpful for that. Yeah.
That old chestnut. I've seen so many
that old chestnut.
Yeah, I've seen so many, because it's something that I work with people, is looking at their attachment styles in relationships, and the avoidant and the anxious go really well together. Just one kind of wants to latch on, and then one wants to run away, and you see a lot of people that do have those particular styles often will end up together and feed into this a bit of an unhealthy cycle sometimes. So just having that awareness, and not from a space of judgment, of interesting, this is where I am and I don't need to be here forever. I can do the work around moving somewhere else, but owning where we are is such a powerful part of it.
Yeah, I agree. And again, not from a judgment perspective. And I think for me, this is my opinion, but I think the judgment for me comes in when you acknowledge where you're at, and you acknowledge that you're not willing to do anything about it. That's when you go, okay, well, that's a different conversation. Whereas, if you acknowledge, okay, I'm in this sort of area, I have some work to do, and maybe I don't know what to do, so I'll reach out for help, reach out, maybe get some therapy or some support from people who have, gone through that process, which is important. Would you recommend therapy? Have you ever been in therapy?
Absolutely would recommend it. Yes, I've spent a lot of time in therapy. I've done the dance, and I would recommend a mixture between talk therapy, because I do really believe in that, although that's a little bit of a longer road in terms of getting the results, because we're more working with that conscious mind. I think it's important to be validated in our experiences and to be witnessed and to be heard, especially if we've gone through things as a child as well, like allowing our inner child to be witnessed in their experiences. So yes, absolutely talk therapy. And then I do really think that deeper work, so that subconscious work, whether it be with hypnotherapy, Reiki, therapy, NLP, breath work, tapping, all kinds of things, like working with something like that can work with the body, so the somatic body, and then also work with the mind, because we encode trauma in all of those spaces as well, and the body keeps score. So body work is such an important thing as well, because even if we work through things on a mental level and we're at peace with it and we've found forgiveness, we can still have things trapped in our body that we've kind of stored along the way that we haven't quite released as well. So having that comprehensive, I would call it, approach to it all, so
Well
that
put.
we can talk about it, we can validate ourselves, we can find the tools, we can have the awareness, we can put in place the strategies, but then we can also work with it on that deeper level as well.
Yeah, really good. And I think for me, I've had experience with some of those modalities as well, and come in as what's the word I'm looking for? Skeptic. And gone, yeah, I'm not sure about this. And then done it, been open to it. And I think that's the key, being open to actually giving it a go.
Yeah.
It's powerful. EFT in particular, the tapping was honestly, I thought it was really cringe. It was really cringy, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is not going to do anything." And then when I started to incorporate it into my life, I was like, "This is so powerful," and things come to the surface that I didn't even realize were there.
Yeah.
Also done some Sozo. Have you ever heard of Sozo?
Yes. Yep,
it's like a healing school.
Yep.
Yeah, that was really powerful as well.
Cool.
Lots of things there.
Yep.
NLP, hypnotherapy, which again, I came in hypnotherapy. I was like, all right, they're gonna click and make me quack like a duck. And it's like, no, that's not what hypnotherapy actually is. Prayer retreats, all sorts of incredible things. And I think if you go into something, of course, this, but I'm speaking to people who are listening as well. If you go into this with an open mind and a willingness to give it a go, and if it doesn't work out, no one's saying it should, like, it's okay. But actually, if you are holding on to something and it is tearing you down or weighing you down, then why not go down a particular road with an expert, with a professional, with someone who's had some experience in that, and sorry, I'm going into a little sermon now, and just throwing into that as well, you can vibe with people. Some people you don't vibe with, and therefore you don't have to go down that road. I've met people who said, oh, I tried therapy, didn't get on with the therapist, and therapy is rubbish. And it's like, well, you had an experience with someone you didn't vibe with, maybe try someone else and give it a good go.
That's why I chose more of like the counseling, holistic kind of realm, because I saw a lot of like psychologists, and I found that just didn't vibe with me. I wanted more of that personal approach with people. I wanted to hear about some of their life experiences, or I just wanted that personal kind of feeling with them. And I found that and I know there's amazing psychologists out there as well, but I found that the ones that I came into contact with, I just didn't have the experience that I needed. So shop around. Do I feel safe? Do I trust this person? Do I like this person? Like, they're all important things, because yes, it's your therapist, but it's someone that you're going to unload a lot of stuff with. So really making sure that it is someone that you trust and you feel safe with, and that you like on some level, because that does really make a big difference.
Yeah, it really does. Really, really does. Excellent. I'm very for people getting some professional help, whatever that looks like. And if people have a religious sort of inclination, then to try and see if you can get some support in that area. I'd always be mindful about people's experiences and what they've been through, and is their credibility in terms of what they're bringing to the table. I think that's really important, because you can blindly go in to theory but not actually have the experience and the wisdom behind it.
And if you can, like, is that person living the life that I want to have? It's like going to a
Mm.
relationship therapist that's in a really toxic relationship. And we don't always know these details about these people, but the world that we live in these days, a lot of people have an Instagram or a Facebook and like a bit of a public image. So we can get to see a little bit more about them as well. So, does this
Mm.
person, have good rituals and routines, and are they healthy? Like, are you going to go hire a PT that, eats McDonald's every day? No, probably not. Like, are you going to go work with
No.
a money coach that is broke? Like, it's checking in and making sure that that
Mm.
person that you are getting that support with is integrity, going in, making sure that you're seeing a therapist
Mm.
that's done the work themselves, because I know plenty that haven't. And I think that that's personally very out of integrity. So making sure that that person is in integrity, that like they do have a life that is kind of,
Mm.
showing you that as well, because they're walking the walk and talking the talk.
Walking the
Yeah.
walk. Yeah, absolutely. Leading by example.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Okay. Books and movies can be powerful motivators. Is there a particular book or a movie or something else, maybe another piece of medium that I haven't thought of, that has inspired you to be courageous?
I love Brené Brown. I think all of her books are wonderful. I highly recommend
Mm.
her as an author. The first book that really changed my world was You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And I know it's not necessarily a
Ooh,
book about courage, but it also, I guess, could be as well.
could you say that title one more time, just really
You
clearly?
Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And I
Thank
just
you.
remember opening it up and just being like, wow. And what that book gave me was a little bit of a courage to know that I could do the things, that I could heal my
Mm.
life, that I could make sense of things, that I could find peace with my past. So that book in particular was
Mm.
very pivotal for me in my journey, and it just gave me, again, that little bit of like courage injection that I needed to kind of fully step in and surrender and go on that healing journey. What else do I love? I've got a big bookshelf behind me. Lots of different things.
Start looking at our bookshelf.
Letting Go. Yeah.
Mm.
Letting Go by David Hawkins as well is another one. Because it's just all around this like letting go and just being at peace with things and knowing that like life has happened and we can't change the past and we can't go in and,
Mm.
change the certain events that have unfolded, but we can find peace with it. And I think that's such a really beautiful way of looking at
Mm.
courage and change and just stepping in, knowing that I can't go back and do anything about that, but I can change the way that I'm looking at that and the way that I'm feeling about that.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Great recommendations there. I'll definitely put links in the description for people who are interested in having a look at those. I'm going to do a little plug, actually. I've developed a journal for people who develop courage, who
I
want
love
to develop
that.
courage in their lives. So it's a 31-day process. It doesn't have to happen consecutively every single day, but there are 31 sort of entries in the journal. And it uses the acronym RISE. R stands for reflect. I stands for inspire, S stands for study, and E stands for encourage. And so there's a page for each of those acronyms per day. So it's quite intensive, but a lot of it's optional. Anyway, I'm throwing that out there because I want to send you a copy. It is available in
Amazing.
Australia, so I'll get a copy sent out to you, and I'd love to hear your feedback and what you think from a professional perspective, but also personally as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I love it because I love that there's, it's a process, because I think we can often want to, have this fast, injection into something, whereas, things can take time, and it takes time to, reflect and to ask questions. And, things are, 30 days to make a habit, essentially. I'd argue sometimes it takes longer, right? So, I love that you've kind of created something that gives people that time to really almost build the muscle of courage.
Absolutely. So I'd love to see what you think of that. And if anyone's listening and they'd like a copy, links in the description, or you can go to goencourage.com to grab yourself a copy. It is available in the UK, in Australia, America, Canada, and across Europe as well. So if you're listening from any of those places, you can get a hold of that. We're talking about I'm plugging the book. I actually think it's amazing. I've had some really good feedback, but it'd be good to get some feedback from you as well. So Ella, you also have your own podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, it's called Wildly Worthy, and it's a beautiful educational piece. So there's lots of different bite-sized strategies, tools, questions. We love to throw the questions in there and really get people thinking about certain things. We cover lots of different topics, and we also then inject in our own personal experiences, being lived experiences, and then also experiences with clients as well to kind of tie things in together as well. So yeah, it's available on all major platforms, and it's a really beautiful dive into lots of different inner work elements, and obviously, all built around building that wildly worthy life.
What was your motivation behind that? What sort of steps of courage did you take to build that platform?
I had to really break through like a lot of fears around being seen in business in general. I had some major fears around being seen. I basically avoided any public speaking in high school. I had, panic attacks anytime I would have to be in front of people. So, it was always the thing that held me back the most, actually voicing my concerns and doing, talks around certain things. It was something that always kind of limited me in life. So for me, I think there was probably a personal element of really just stepping in and owning something that has been one of my biggest limitations in life. But also just, I love conversations. I love asking thought-provoking questions, and I love sharing my knowledge that I've acquired through study and learning, but also my knowledge I've acquired through my lived experiences as well. So it's a space that we share all of those beautiful things, and yeah, I get to do something that I'm really passionate about.
Well done, you. Go you. I'll stick a link in the description to that podcast as well. And if you are listening via Go Encourage, go and check it out. See what you got, what Wildly Worthy is doing out there. And if you're on Wildly Worthy and you're listening to this somehow, then come and check out what we're doing as well in terms of building courage. Excellent. Is there an individual or someone who comes to mind as catalysts for your growth in courage? So just to be clear, this is the area of the podcast that if you wanted to shout anyone out, now's your chance.
Honestly, myself,
Ooh, strong.
because I was always my biggest critic, my biggest, but I've also always been my own biggest cheerleader in a lot of times as well. And, I've been the common denominator in every situation that I've experienced. I've been the one that's always there. And I've had to overcome me in order to move through the things. And I think overcoming self and our ego, our stories, our fear, like there's so much that we need to overcome internally to actually step in. So yeah, I'm, really honoring myself in all of that, because there was a mountain that I needed to overcome to step into this work. And yeah, I definitely have inspired myself through that journey. And I think when we can find that inspiration from self, it's a really beautiful thing to do, because we can inspire ourselves. And yes, it's beautiful to find inspiration in other people that are creating big and beautiful things in their life. I love real stories about real people that do real amazing things in their life, but we can also do that in our own lives, and we can be the hero in our own story. And I think that's a really beautiful thing to do.
All right, Ella, love yourself much? The
Absolutely.
answer is yes. Excellent. I know we touched a little bit on faith during our conversation as well, and I think there's this thing. Again, speaking from a biblical background, where you're a co-author with God.
Mm,
And I
mm,
think that's really interesting because, you touched on something there that you can show up for yourself. You are the hero in your own
mm.
story. So you play an important part of the decisions that you make and the free will choices that you make in terms of how you overcome or how you step forward
Yeah.
through any obstacles that come your way. So I think that plays in nicely with what you're saying there.
Yeah, and there's also the parts that you don't have control over, that something higher is providing for you. And so it's just having that surrender piece of, I'm going to control this and I'm going to put my action over here, but then I'm also just going to allow, God, source, universe, whatever higher power you look to come in and to weave their magic over here as well.
What advice would you give to people struggling with fear right now? What should they prioritize in terms of self-development? What would be okay, start here.
Regulation, emotional regulation, through whatever tool you choose, whatever works for you, but just checking in, how am I feeling in this moment? Oh, I'm feeling really anxious. I'm feeling really fearful. Because if that's the state that we're in, that's the results that we're going to create. So changing our internal state isn't going to change the results that we're experiencing externally, and we're going to have so much more success. So, just going and doing the meditation, or going for a run, or singing some music and dancing around the house, and just shifting your state out of that space of lack or fear or whatever it is, and moving yourself into a more resourceful space within yourself. Because when we're feeling resourceful, we can see possibilities, we can see life through a completely different lens, and therefore we're going to create different results, and we're going to actually have the courage to go after the things that we want. So emotional regulation every single day through your rituals, through those little 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, it all adds up to the big stuff. And again, the state that we're in will dictate the results that we create.
Absolutely. And marrying that up with what you said much earlier in terms of if you feel like you don't have the time to do any of that, you need to go to the toilet at some point in the day. So there's a place where you can start.
Yeah, great.
And then start to maybe build that outside of the bathroom later on.
Yeah.
But really important. And something else I just wanted to pull from that as well, you're talking about state there. You have the power to change your state. You don't have to rely on someone else to change that state. So I think that's an important thing to throw out as well.
And no one can, yes, people can change your state, but you're responsible. And so even that, that person that's cutting you off on the road that you're really angry about, you're choosing to sit in anger. You're choosing to sit in whatever emotion over that and to let that affect your day. That is a choice. And whatever we're not changing, we are on some level choosing. Now, when we really hear that state, it's like, oh, what do you mean I'm choosing this? Of course I'm not choosing this. Who the hell are you to tell me that? But we are, because we have a choice, and we can go in and choose to let go of the things, to heal, to feel better about ourselves. And it does take radical responsibility, and coming back to what you beautifully shared, that it is a choice.
Yeah. And forgiveness, I'm going to throw in, is a big part of that. When you choose to forgive in those little moments when you're at the traffic lights and someone cuts you off or whatever, you're released. It's not going to have an impact on the rest of your day.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we bid you farewell?
Just to enjoy this beautiful journey of life, and to know that there's going to be ups and downs, and there's going to be moments of just humanness, of mess, of emotion, of everything falling apart. And those moments are just as powerful as the moments where we feel like we're on top of the mountain. And it's that beautiful dance between finding the higher perspective and finding the courage and seeing the possibilities, and being in that resourceful space, but then also allowing the emotion and the messiness of life to take place as well, because feeling really is healing. And sometimes we just need to be annoyed. Sometimes we just need to feel the things, and then choose something different after that. But not taking it all too seriously, and having that compassion for yourself every day, and remembering that you are doing the best you can with the resources you have available. And maybe right now you're bringing on board more resources in terms of knowledge, support, wisdom, whatever it is for you, but you're doing the best with the resources you have available. And if you're not happy with what your life currently looks like, go and find some more resources to give you different results in your life, but have compassion for where you currently are. Because I think we can be so hard on ourselves, we can judge ourselves, we can criticize ourselves, we can constantly put this pressure on ourselves, and there's enough pressure out there. And if we can change that internal dialogue, and we can kind of suppress that inner critic, and we can bring on board that inner cheerleader, and give her the microphone, him the microphone, them the microphone more, she's going to be saying some epic things and motivating us and telling us that we can do those things. And therefore we're going to be feeling so much better about life. So that internal talk, the way that we treat ourselves, having compassion, are all very key, important things. And have fun.
Beautiful.
And have fun.
And have fun.
Schedule in fun, right? Schedule in fun every week, because we can be so serious, and we have so many chores and responsibilities, and we grow up and we get grey hairs, and we forget that we have an inner child inside of us that just likes to have fun. And so, scheduling in time for fun and pleasure every week is so important, because, that's the stuff that really gives our life meaning. And that's the stuff that we really enjoy as well. So let's go and schedule it in.
Yeah, schedule some of that in. and I think, just to throw into that as well, that growth often we think has always got to be hard. It's always got to be, you've got to come out of your shell. You've got to rise from the ashes, etc., etc. But actually, you can have fun during that process. You can have fun growing and learning new things and learning new things about yourself.
Yeah. Going to the club and being able to dance without alcohol and dance like no one's watching, that's growth. Right? And that's having fun at the same time. Like, growth isn't always these moments of crying or in a deep therapy session. Like, it's those little moments in between that we don't always notice as well. And it can be fun, and it can be pleasure filled, joy filled. It doesn't always need to feel hard and heavy and ugh, like it gets to all coexist.
Yeah, totally. Ella, it's been amazing. It's been so good talking to you. On Before you go, and we were talking about resources there, if people wanted to connect with you and find out what you offer in terms of services, if they're close by to you, or if you do that virtually across the world as well, where can they find you? What can they get from you? How can you help them?
I have two businesses. One is the Enlighten Co. So we have all of our things on Instagram, Facebook, website. So you can go and check us out. We run retreats, online programs, events, workshops, all kinds of things. So go and check us out. You can find me on Instagram, Ella Worsley. I can send some links across for my stuff as well. Come and reach out. I do lots of different individual things, and most of my work really is tailored to the individual as well. I like to just, get a feel for what people are needing, and therefore deliver services based off that. But I do a lot of beautiful inner transformation work with people, and that / group stuff as well.
Fantastic. So if someone listened to this today and they had something specific to ask you on the back of this conversation, could they DM you and ask you just a quick specific?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Please do.
And if you haven't quite got the courage to do that, you can DM me on Instagram and I'm forward on the message as well. She's not very scary. I can speak from experience.
I promise you'll be met with love.
So once again, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your insights today. You've been such a great guest. I'm kind of hoping you'd come back and maybe do something in our relationship series.
Yeah.
It'd be really interesting to kind of get some of your sort of insight into those areas.
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
Some of the stuff that you've been talking about today. So that'd be good.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right. Ella, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. If you're listening to this, wherever you are, an encouragement for me and Ella today is to keep moving forward, have fun while you're doing it, and go in courage. We'll see you on the next one. Hey, really, really hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. What a beautiful soul. Ella just brought a lot to the table there, I think. Until the next time, I hope you keep moving forward. I hope you're pushing through the fears and building courage. And I think something Ella said today that that I think is really powerful as well is taking that first step. Taking that first step of courage, and you'll find that the rest of it will catch up with you. So take that on board, keep moving forward, and I shall see you on the next one. Go in courage.